So this SOS video is about recursive formulas, which represent a sequence and can be used to find additional terms. It's usually used when there's more than one operation involved. So recursive formula finds the other terms in a sequence by relating each term to a previous term. So the previous term is shown by the symbol a sub n minus 1. The recursive formula is written in two parts that are either separated by a semicolon or they're listed in a column. One part is the starting term. It usually is the first term, but it doesn't have to be. And then we look at the previous term, a sub n minus 1, and any operations that are used on that term. We need to use a recursive formula if more than one operation is involved. So here's an example of a recursive formula. Here's my starting term, separated by a semicolon, and I can find any term by multiplying the previous term. So remember, anytime we see a sub n minus 1, it just means the value of the previous term. We're going to take that value, we'll multiply it by 1/2, and we add 6. And that's how we get our next term. So for example, our first term was 8. Our second term is found by taking half of the previous term and adding 6 to it. Half of 8 is 4, add 6 is 10. Our third term is found by taking our previous term, which is 10, multiplying it by 1/2 and adding 6, and we get 11. Our fourth term is found by taking our previous term. So if you think of this, this is saying our fourth term is 1/2 of 4 minus 1, the previous term, the third term, and adding 6, which means this is 1/2. Our third term was 11, and we add 6 to that. So 5.5 plus 6 is 11.5. And that's how you find the values when you're given a recursive formula. Let's look at the next example. Here, the two parts are listed in a column. So we're told that the first term, a sub 1, is 1/3. Now to find the first four terms, well, I have my first term. My second term, a sub 2, is -6 times a sub 2 minus 1 plus 8. That means -6 times whatever my first term is plus 8. So -6 times, well, my first term was 1/3 plus 8, and -6 times 1/3 is -2, and plus 8 is a positive 6. Now to find my third term, we're going to say -6 times our previous term, which is our second term, plus 8. Well, -6 times the previous term was 6, plus 8. This gives us -36 plus 8, which is -28. And that's our third term. To find our fourth term, it's -6 times the previous term, which means -6 times what our third term was, plus 8. So we have -6 times -28 plus 8. And remember, using your calculator, you can, let's clear that. And we can type in -6 times -28 plus 8. And our final term is 176. Whenever we look at the two parts of a recursive formula, the first part is going to show our starting term. Usually it's our first term, but it doesn't have to be. The second part shows our operations. If I have this negative 6 in front, this is saying we're multiplying by negative 6 and then adding 8 at the end. And this just means our previous term's value. So each time when I was looking for the second term, I needed to multiply the negative 6 times the previous term by the first term's value to find that. Okay, so take a look at your next example, pause your video, try this on your own, and then start the video again, see how you did. Okay, so our sequence is defined recursively by having a first term of 8, and then to find any term, we multiply the previous term by a negative 1, and then we're going to add 5. So a sub 1 equals 8. A sub 2 means we're going to multiply this term by a negative 1, and we'll add 5. And negative 8 plus 5 is a negative 3. Our third term, we're going to multiply our previous term by negative 1 and add 5. Well, our previous term value is negative 3. Negative 1 times negative 3 is a positive 3, plus 5 is 8. I think you've seen the pattern, but let's just make sure. Our fourth term, we're going to multiply our previous term by negative 1 and add 5. Our previous term was 8. Negative 1 times 8, negative 8 plus 5 is negative 3. And these would be the first four terms of our sequence. Well, sometimes you're asked to define a sequence recursively, and it's written in words. So we need to write it in symbols. It's defined recursively by subtracting 6 from 3 times the value of the previous term. So we're saying that a sub n will equal, remember from comes first, so 3 times the value of the previous term. 3 times, and the previous term is shown by a sub n minus 1, and then we're going to subtract 6 from that. Write a recursive rule for the sequence if the first term is 4. So this would be the rule, and remember we also need to show a starting term, and usually we'll put that in front. So a sub 1 is 4, and we would separate this with a semicolon. And that is how you would write a sequence recursively. If you were asked to find additional terms, you could do that as well. But all you were asked to do is write the recursive rule, and that is what we did. So this SOS video has been about how you can write a recursive formula and how you can use a recursive formula.